Okay, well, hello, welcome everyone. My name is Enrique Basurto and I'm joined here by Svetlana Serini. We're both parents and researchers that collaborate here at the Autism Research Coalition. And today we have two very special guests with us, Dr. Olga Tiumina and Dr. Stanislav Bolchkov. Dr. Tiumina and Dr. Bolchkov, thank you so very much for joining us today.
Thank you for take us here and the possibility to speak with other people, with patients, and talk about our center, our trials.
Thank you very much for this opportunity, Enrique.
Yeah, so first of all, doctors, on behalf of the autism and cerebral palsy communities that Svetlana and I both represent, we really would like to start by saying thank you so very much for all the work that you do for people with cerebral palsy and with autism spectrum disorder and other developmental disorders. So we know stories of great families that have greatly benefited from the treatments that you offer at the Samara Regional Medical Center, also known as Dynasty, that you both lead in Samara, Russia. And so we're very, very appreciative of your work and also super excited that you have kindly agreed to doing this interview with us. So both Dr. Tiumina and Dr. Bolchkov have very impressive and very extensive backgrounds, which I'm going to try to summarize very quickly before we start with the interview. Dr. Olga Tiumina is the president of Rosport, which is a nonprofit of specialists and organizations in the field of procurement, storage, and use of umbilical cord blood and other cellular technologies. Dr. Tiumina is a prominent doctor in the medical sciences field. She's also an honored health worker in the Samara region in Russia. She is also a professor at the Russian Academy of Sciences and the director of the Samara Regional Medical Center, also known as Dynasty. She's the author of 120 publications and holds multiple patents and registered computer programs and monographs. And Dr. Stanislav Bolchkov is the deputy director of the Samara Regional Medical Center, Dynasty. He is the executive director of the nonprofit hematopoietic progenitor cells registry. He is an expert of the fund for assistance to small innovative enterprises in science and technology. He is the founder of the Institute of Biotechnology and Pharmacology in Biopharma LLC, and he is also a certified designee for biomedical cellular products acquired by the Ministry of Health of the Russian Federation. So thank you again, guys. So in this live interview, this live chat that we're going to have with Dr. Tiumina and Dr. Bolchkov, we will discuss the clinical trials, the future research and treatments that are currently provided at the Center of Cerebral Technologies in Samara, Russia, using donor cord blood transfusions and other stem cell therapies for the treatment of autism, cerebral palsy, and other developmental disorders. The last thing I would like to say before we start, doctors, is that we did receive many questions from parents that we compiled and that we're going to use as the basis for this interview. So we do have a lot to cover today. So without further ado, I'll just turn this over to Svetlana to start with the questions.
Thank you. Just to start, would you so kind to describe the treatments offered in Dynasty Center in Samara? What kind of condition disorders commonly treated at your center? Who would like to ask? Thank you, Olga.
Enrique, for invitation and presentation. Thank you, Svetlana, for this organization, this conference. I greet all participants in this discussion. The Center of Cellular Technologies is the largest public cord blood bank in Russia. The center was founded by the state in 2003. Now we have more than 10,000 samples of cord blood in the cryopreservation facility. The first transplantation, a sample for cord blood from our center, was in 2010 for a child with leukemia in St. Petersburg, then in Moscow and other Russian transplant centers. The first cord blood samples was transplanted in 2012 for an international patient from the Netherlands after the labs was internationally accredited IFI groups. Thus, the first use of cord blood was for blood disease like leukemia. Then the use of cord blood samples in regenerative medicine for the treatment of neurological disease such as cerebral palsy and autistic disorder.
I guess one of the treatments that your center has specialized in is in treating developmental disorders using cord blood transfusions, as opposed to other types of cellular treatments. Can you describe a little bit why is that decision, and what you guys have found as as a result of the different treatments that you have done at your center?
Okay. Russian legislation allows cord blood transplantation for the treatment of blood cancers and other blood disease. And now we have registered methods of treatment with cord blood infusion for neurological disease. This reason that other cell types of treatment must be improved by the Ministry of Health as a new drug. And now we have trials with used different type of cells, because different type of cells we must take like new drugs, and we must receive approved from Ministry of Health. And we have now trials only with cord blood samples like stem cells types.
Sure. Tell us what kind of improvements have you observed from cord blood transfusion in development disorders, for example, for cerebral palsy, for trials you already done? And do you have any theories why those improvements have occurred? For example, if there is any effects of stem cells on innate immunity or cell-mediated adaptive immunity for autism, or any theories if you have for the cerebral palsy?
Now we have completed a limited clinical trial, transfusion of allogenic cord blood samples in patients with autism spectrum disorders. The study was enrolled autistic children aged 3 to 15 years of age. Participants was carried out on 10 patients with autism spectrum disorder by transfusion of hematopoietic cord blood cells, mononuclears, in the range of 80 million cells per kilogram patient weight. It was 3 transfusion during 3 months. Every month, 1 transfusion. Cord blood was made only for in the
We're having some trouble hearing you.
We're losing you.
Control group, 10 patients with similar pathology was examined, comparable in the age, gender, and degree of autistic disorder received standard therapy. The primary outcomes was assessed first, second, third, 6 and 12 months after the treatment. Evolution scales, CARS, and attack scales, neuropsychology examination, assessment of neurological status. We determinate of the immune status by flow cytometry, determination of the level of cytokines in the peripheral blood. Evaluation of the effect is carried out using the scales used in the introduction to the protocol, evaluation of the neurological and the psychological status of the patient. Evaluation of immune status indicator is carried out 6 months after the last injection. Cytokine profile is assessed first, second, third month after the first injection. Positive change in the behavior of children were observed already in the first month after cell transfusion in all indicators of the attack scale. But the most significant improvements were recorded in the attack speech, language, communication skills, health, general behavior, and general summary. The study proved the safety of the method by attack scale. We didn't receive 7. And we know significant change in the cytokine profile and immune status were detected. Now we consider that hematopoietic progenitor cells can release numerous angiogenetic factors such as vascular endothelial growth factor and able to initiate angiogenesis, ischemic brain tissue, and also immune regulation. And we also believe that this is some kind of epigenetic reprogramming based on donor secretome, maybe.
It's exactly the study that you are going to publish soon, because you just published the results on the clinical trials. You just entered the results for the Russian study. Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
this is the same. Yeah.
I see. I see.
Yeah. So along those lines, could you please describe the clinical trials conducted at your center using cord blood transfusions, and what kinds of results have you seen from those trials? And if you can provide as many details as possible, because many of the parents that are watching this, they're very knowledgeable. I mean, in terms of the dosage, that are conducted in trials, in other studies, the number of infusions that you guys use in your trials, and the age of the participants, and what results have you guys observed?
I will try to ask these questions. So right now we are conducting 2 clinical trials. One is to use umbilical cord blood with patients with autism. The second one to use cord blood with patients with cerebral palsy. The both protocols have the same treatment procedure. So there is a 3-patient group in each trial. First patient group is high HLA matching. Second group with low HLA matching is a third group with its control group without any cord blood transfusion. So we enroll patients from all over the world, from international patients, Russian patients, in all these trials. So distribution in these groups open after finding some compatible cord blood. So if we found compatible cord blood unit for patient, we high group or low group or both, we ask the parents to choose group. We talk about which group have benefits, which group is better, which is so we provide all information, and the parents decide which group he want his child to go. So both protocols designed to make 2 infusions between 6 months between infusions, and we select cord blood based on cell count per kilogram of patient. So the best, we think the best option is to make infusion with 100 million cells per kilogram of the weight of the child. So this
100 million cells per
100 million cells, yes, per kilo. Yes, it's good. So in terms of age, for ASD people, ASD child, we take from 4 till 12 years, and for cerebral palsy, for 14 years for autism, and for cerebral palsy from 1 year to 12 years. So about results, unfortunately, due to COVID infections, we stop this protocol, and right now we don't have enough information to do any
revision,
any results. Yes, but we speak with many patients and receive very good positive information about progress, but it's just words from the patients. We cannot put it on the paper and use it
to publish.
Yes, to publish.
Okay, can you now tell us what have been your experience so far in terms doing multiple cord blood transfusions from multiple donors per recipient? In what areas have you observed using multiple transfusion has led to better outcomes, or than single transfusion? Did you make such kind of comparison with Russian patients? And then I will ask you more question about the protocol you talked before.
Okay, so
also if there is any potential side effects from the multiple donors.
Okay.
What your point of view?
How we start? So we came to multiple transfusions when we saw in the past that the effect of one transfusion is not enough. So in some studies and cases, we have performed up to 4 or even 6 transfusions in one patient from different donors. So in each study, it was a different time between the infusions, but we see no complications in these patients. We also have experience, and now it's this technology used in our clinic. We make infusions in newborn babies with serious neurologic symptoms after the hypoxia. Yes, it's just newborn babies with low weight. So we infused them with three cord bloods.
Not at the same time.
Of few days, yes. And we see no any problems and see no any consequences. So we also check the hemorrhagism, and hemorrhagism it's analysis that using this analysis we can track DNA of the donor in the patient organism.
Okay.
This shows us the cell, the viability of the donor cell. If we found donor DNA in the patient, we think the cells is viable and live in the patient. If we see no DNA in the patient, the probably donor cells is eliminated. So we do this test in the newborns after a few days after the transfusions and see no donor DNA. So the cells probably was eliminated from the donor. So on the contrary, these babies discharged from the clinic with very good results. They was discharged from intensive care with minimum neurological symptoms. So on the other hand, what we found about multiple transfusion, we saw that more than 4 transfusions, if you do more than 4 transfusions, the progression become weaker. Each next transfusion, the progression in patients was weaker and weaker. Yes, yes. We believe that it's optimal to make 2, maximum 3 transfusions. So about side effects, maybe it's possible. We probably think about one side effects, and it's possible some immunization. It's possible, but this immunization works like immunization in transfusion when the people receive many blood transfusions. It's
ordinary blood, you mean?
Yes, ordinary blood. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So it may lead to just rejection of the next infusion. This is only big problem with if you want to receive next cord blood. It can be rejected.
Okay.
So we did not think these multiple infusions can affect patients' health. So,
are you doing a test for the chimerism for each child who is coming for the second transfusion in your center?
No.
For example, for all trials?
Yes. It's
before the second transfusion.
Yes, but it's made before the second transfusion. Yes, you're absolutely right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would just like to recap on everything you said, Stanislav, which is very critical, just so that to make sure that we have this kind of in a nutshell. So the trials you are doing basically 2 arms of a trial. It may be like 2 clinical trials. Yeah. You may say it that way, which is one has low level of HLA matching, the other one has high level of HLA matching. For the people that are seeing this that may not know what that means. The low level of HLA matching is kind of closer to receiving a blood transfusion, less solely on blood type, let's say, or based on a small number of phenotypes that the recipient is sharing with the donor, right? Whereas a high number of HLA matching, it means like you're sharing more elements of your phenotype with your donor. So the idea is to be able to assess the difference between those two groups and seeing to what extent that really makes a difference in the efficacy of the treatment. So that's kind of what they're exploring, which is very, very interesting. As far as the dosage, which I also heard, which is also interesting, is that the dosage is about like 100 million cells per kilo. That specifically is referring to the total nucleated cells, because remember, if I'm not mistaken, and that is because we are actually making an actual transfusion. So everything that goes in the blood is being transfused into the recipient. So we would expect like about like 2% of that would be stem cells. But it's important that all the other material, like the plasma and everything else, is going to go there, which it may be also important as well. From what you have seen, and I think this is really interesting and important that you're doing this kind of research, because there are so many questions that need to be answered, and certainly like the ability to really have like these kinds of analysis, between what really matters. I mean, to what extent do we really need to be concerned as to having like a super high HLA matching, or maybe just something closer to a blood type that may be sufficient. What I also think is super important about what you just said, Stanislav, is that you have observed that a single infusion may not make much of a difference, but having multiple infusions may be a higher effect. And I guess do you have any scales on how you're measuring that? I mean, I know that this is still pending for publication, but what kinds of scales are you using to kind of track the efficacy of treatments over time as you infuse these multiple treatments on children?
So let me answer your questions, but about HLA first, okay? So about difference in HLA. Some researchers think it's suppose the high HLA capability, high donor cells from the patient's immune system. In theory, the high compatible cells can stay longer in the donor organism and work longer, of course. But human immune system works not only by HLA system. So there are many different mechanisms to find the enemy, and the donor cells is the enemy for the patient. So we don't show the high HLA capability can save the cells to live longer in the patients. Or this trial can answer these questions. I hope this answers these questions. But right now we cannot say that the high HLA is better than the low HLA. So what about the next questions was please.
Yeah, no, I guess it was about the scales that you're using for assessing
how you measure measure the progress.
The progress, as Olga say, in the cerebral palsy, we measure progress by assessing GMFCS scale and GMFM scale. At a gross motor function as stable. So this is different. It's the neurologists know these methods. So they ask kids to lay, to sit, to stand, to walk. There's about 88 or 66 different questions. Yes. So, but we cannot publish this data because it was too low. We don't at this moment on the first trials
But how many patients you got?
10 patients.
10 patients in cerebral palsy.
Yes,
and then when COVID happened?
COVID happened on this trial, on the second trial. On the first trial, when we analyzed data, so only 10 patients was, but not all data we can accept and calculate. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess we can share some of the details of what's included in the trial because that's I mean the protocols are public right now, right? I mean even though the results are still in progress, the details of the trials that you guys are conducting are public, so we can share those with people.
Sorry, some little. What was the questions?
Yeah, no. So I mean, the protocol that you're using, that means all the details about the clinical trial. I mean, those are things that we can share with the public, right?
Yeah,
So
of
they
course.
can see
Yeah.
what are the elements
Yes,
of the trial.
it's not a secret. It's published on the clinicaltrials.gov, so everybody can read
Sure.
it.
Yeah, so we can paste those links, in the live chat.
Yeah, of course.
Yep. I want also to know, based on the outcomes you have observed, what kind of patients are more likely you think can benefit from cord blood? Maybe you have seen what kind of patient have more chances for cord blood to have better outcome, or maybe you see the autism children who have more likely to get better outcome. For example, if a younger or higher functioning children in autism with stronger immune system or more diverse microbiomes tend to benefit more from cord blood for autism.
I will try to answer for this question.
Thank you, Olga.
Yes, it's a great question because we always ask themselves what it will be better for our patient. And now we observed the best results after cord blood transfusion in younger patients with cerebral palsy, like and autistic disorder. Younger patients, it means more or less than 5 years old. Also, we observe an increase in the clinical effect of the infusion of high-level cells from
count.
Yes, and we understand why. Because more secretome, more cells, more activity cells, and we have more high clinical effect. And other reason, what you say, we don't see. And we must ongoing this research, and maybe in the future we find what it will be better.
Mm-hmm.
So the age of the children and the high level of stem cells in amount per kilo. That's the answer, as I understood.
It's true.
Yeah, it seems to be like very, very important. Like acting, the sooner you act is the better, right? And obviously there's, I guess it goes along the same logic of using multiple transfusions. I mean, when you're using multiple transfusions, simply the dosage you're giving is going to be much higher than using a simple one. So it kind of, I mean, those concepts go along the same lines. The only consideration obviously is that one transfusion means one donor, and I guess I guess this is obvious, but I just want just say it out loud for people that are watching this. Transfusion means multiple donors. So there's only so much blood that is going to be contained in one umbilical cord, that when you make one transfusion, then the next one is going to need to be from a different person, right? And then the next one is going to need to be from a different person. So that's the only consideration. We don't really know if that is the downside, which is exactly what doctors Timin and Bochkov are studying right now. So that's really important and very critical research that you're doing. So what are your plans? I mean, based on what you know now, what would be your plans regarding upcoming clinical trials? Will international children be included in those trials? I mean, would there be a possibility to probably, for some people watching outside of the Russia, I mean, to apply and when would you expect the trials to resume?
Enrique, we want upcoming clinical trials, and we want to invite international patients in these trials. But now borders is closed, and we plan to continue clinical trials after the opening the borders. And we hope that it will be very soon. And we continue these two clinical trials, what we opened before.
Thank you.
When it will be.
And can you tell us, if you're planning any other clinical trials, for example, if you're considering clinical trials with the use of other cellular technologies, therapies like MSC, or I don't know, bone marrow, or maybe adipose tissue, stem cells, something like this, or you are concentrating only on the cord blood? What is your point also on the exosomes? This is also very interesting.
Stanislav,
yes, it's my
for you.
My favorite. Yes. I think let's speak about mesenchymal stem cells. I like to say the mesenchymal cells, no matter what the source, the friend of the hematopoietic stem cells. So hematopoietic stem cells contained in umbilical cord blood. So it is because the mesenchymal stem cells have the ability to control and regulate all other cells, including hematopoietic cells. So there is also data that the mesenchymal stem cells express neurological antigens, and they can regulate neurologic tissues. So we considered to use mesenchymal stem cells. It's a very good idea. So and it's better to use it both cord blood with all cells and the mesenchymal stem cells. We think it will improve and improve each other. All cells improve the strength of the work each other. I think we will able to get more stable results and more stronger effect from the treatment with combined product. So we also can use cord blood and mesenchymal stem cells in any neurologic disease, including autoimmune disease and other diseases like autism, like cerebral palsy, like other neurologic disease. So right now we are pending the permission from Ministry of Health of Russian Federation to start producing mesenchymal stem cells for clinical trials. So I think in the next year, in the middle of the next year, we're going to open new study with combined products.
With combined products, cord blood with MSC.
Yes, we very hope to start this on the next year.
What would be the source of the MSCs? If I mean, I know it's both. I mean, regardless of the source, they are useful. But what would be the source?
Very good question.
We plan to use cord as a source of the mesenchymal stem cells because it's
cord tissue.
Cord tissue, yes, of course, because it's very easy for us to get this resource. We don't need to take its younger resource. It's the cells from cord. It's very younger and it's very effective. Yeah. So the second about exosomes, the second part of the questions, I think this is a perfect product. It's fantastic. The exosomes goes from the mesenchymal stem cells, and many researchers think the effect from the mesenchymal stem cells is because of exosomes. So exosomes, it's some kind of email system from the cells. Exosome contains instruction for the cells to what, how, and when to do something. So if we can extract exosomes from mesenchymal stem cells, we can make some cellular free product with effect of the mesenchymal stem cells, but without cells itself. So we can avoid immune problems with the immune system. We can make lower risks with infection, disease, or other. So its product is very perspective. And we also try to start this next year.
Mhm.
We already have technology to and have patented technology to extract exosomes from cord blood, from mesenchymal stem cells from cord, and make these exosomes free of cells and make it in big concentrations.
Mhm. So some researchers would just to kind of piggyback on that, but some researchers have argued that using exosomes by themselves may not be beneficial enough if you isolate that completely from the stem cells themselves, right? I mean, because they kind of call these, they produce this communication, and they call for cells for to indicate where there is a repair that is needed, for example. So would you do exosome treatments only without any other without any other mesenchymal cells or any other kinds of cells, or would you combine it with some cells at the same time?
I don't think we will combine it, because we already have that cells only protocols, and I think we need to make the protocols without cells to try to answer these questions. If the exosomes work like cells, or it's without cells, it's work weaker.
So it will be the first protocol like this.
Yes,
so you don't know, you don't have an answer, in fact.
No, nobody knows.
Yeah.
No, nobody knows, but that's a very critical question, right? So one is like, we know that the mesenchymal cells work. I mean, unfortunately, we don't know in what cases, because there are some kids that don't improve. I mean, there are kids that show great improvements, but we just simply don't know, what would happen in a clinical trial, at least that I'm aware of, where exosomes only are applied. So that's a very
we have already some clinical trials with exosomes. Not as a drug, not injected in the body, but like the cosmetic products, it's put on the skin, and it's we tried in some clinics with damaged, burned skin after the burns, big burns, and it's work for a generation, and very, very good, because we saw the women have big burns, second B stage burns on the legs, and after we treat her with our serum with exosomes, she shows very good regeneration. About 7 days, about 40 days, and she was discharged from the clinics without any, just with very good conditions. So the doctor says, if we don't use this cosmetics, usually she need to be 20-25 days in clinic.
Mm-hmm.
So we show very good progression in regenerative. So we think the exosomes works, but we need to try it on the clinical trials without cells. We don't have any other way.
Okay. It's about exosomes too. You hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now we start new clinical trials, and
we can't hear you. We can't hear. We're losing you, Olga.
You see me? You hear? We can start clinical trials with exosome with COVID infection, and this is very important and very interesting clinical trials. Now we sent for clinical trials to register this start initial clinical, and 2 clinics could take part in this study. 2 COVID center, big COVID center in Samara region. One COVID center has 882 beds for COVID patients, and other center have 100 beds for COVID patients. And the method for treatment, it will be inhalation of exosomes.
Inhalation.
Inhalation.
You're starting inhalation. Yep.
Yeah.
By the nose.
Now we enrolled only 21 person who had COVID infection, and we hope it will be more. We wanted to enroll 90 person, and this is randomized clinical trials and blend, double blend randomized clinical trials. And doctor did not know what give the patient. And
when you're supposed to have a result, maybe for this trial, you don't know for COVID.
We thinking it will be more high regeneration from the lung, and we will statistic analysis only after 5-6 months, because we looking for this patient after 1 month from the hospital, and then 6 months. And then 6 months we will see and research this patient who received.
But does this patient in the both groups, they have any other treatments as well, or only exosomes? No, other treatments also.
Normal treatment.
Standard treatments and exosomes. One group has exosomes and another there is no exosomes.
Yeah.
I see. And then you can see if the lungs have better regeneration in the exosomes groups.
Yes, and the one group received placebo. Group.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is, again, I mean, I want to say, Dr. Chimina and Dr. Bolchov, all of these research that you're describing, I mean, we need answers, right? These are like super critical research, and we just simply don't know the answers to these things. So it is, I mean, I really commend the fact that you are, going, and conducting all these trials, so we can have some answers from this. So for parents that are considering to visit your clinic for treatment, and obviously this is, we have to consider COVID and all that, right? But so assuming that, at some point people are we're going to go to, be able to travel and whatnot, what would be your recommendations as far as the prep work to increase the chances, so to speak, of, the chances of success from umbilical cord blood treatment or from other cellular therapies? Would there be any specific diets, any specific supplements, any biomedical treatments that you would recommend in preparation for the transfusions?
Hard to say, because we don't know, because nobody knows this. To answer your questions for sure, we need to conduct new trial and try to some kind of therapy, and then try to stem cell therapy and look at it. So right now, I think, what can I say to patients who going to us? It's about 2 months before the treatment. It's better not to do any new treatments, any unapproved new treatments, any new clinical trials, because this can interfere, and it may do it better, but it may do it worse. I don't know. Nobody.
Yeah.
So not to do 2 months, just stop and do as you usual.
Usually do it.
Yeah.
And for cerebral palsy children as well, for example, what you think if we do some intensive works for cerebral palsy children after cord blood, is it could give better
after cord blood
results?
It's we see better results in the group of patients who do good and very intensive rehabilitation. So
rehabilitation. So
yes,
for cerebral palsy, you can answer.
But after the treatment,
after the treatment, we can start, for example, some kind of intensive therapy, but it's for motor functions.
Yes.
Not concerning any cognitive functions of children.
And also you can do rehabilitation with some programs to increase cognitive functions if you need it, but not to try new drugs or something new. What do you know how to work? What
new supplements or new drugs?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
There's an aspect I think I don't think that has been fully addressed for someone that is traveling or considering to travel, right? I mean, this idea of having multiple transfusions, I guess it assumes that there is going to be some time in between those transfusions, right? So if I'm planning to go And I know that I would like to get, let's say, 2 or 3 transfusions, like you said, that would be like, beneficial or highly beneficial. How much time should I allow myself to, to be there? I mean, what would be the recommendation of timing between transfusions that you have observed that would be needed?
I think the delay between transfusions, it's about 3 to 6 months is good.
Okay.
You don't need to do another transfusion before 2 months from the first one, because
it's
you
too
need
close.
to count down. Yes, you need to use the first transfusion as maximum. It's
Right.
and get maximum gains from it. Then this time is needed to calm down your immune system, not to be
Very reactive.
Yes, and then you can repeat it. But on the clinical trials, we have a little longer delay, 6 months, because we need to check another parameters, and this is a design requires to give a little more time. And another way is because not every patient can travel for such short period of time two times in Russia. So it's very difficult for many people. So many factors.
Okay, thank you. Considering that there are various other ongoing trials in United States, in Europe, we have for microbiota transfer therapy. I don't know if you know this kind of or bumetadine, for example. What do you think about using such kind of treatments together, considering combined trial with such therapies with cell therapy?
Svetlana, I will answer. You're right. It's a lot of interesting clinical trials in USA and in Europe ongoing. But I cannot say anything about the studies and clinical trials. We are not planning a study using these meta therapies like microbiota or others in combination with cord blood stem cells. Now we plan only exosomes maybe in the future and the mesenchymal stem cells and nothing else.
Okay, thank you.
So there are other, and thank you for that. I know that all of this is research in progress, so I guess that's kind of reasonable, and we would obviously like to know if there's anything that could be done in preparation, obviously, and some of these biomedical treatments that are becoming so popular are some of the key questions that people have right now. So and along those lines, there seems to be a common treatment in that are peptide therapies. It seems to be like something that is popular in Russia, such as cerebral leasing, yes, that are used, for as a standalone treatments and also in conjunction with other therapies. So, what would be your thoughts about the use of these therapies like cerebral leasing in conjunction with stem cell therapy, for example? Any thoughts on that?
Enrique, in Russia, it's true that the cereblizine is very often used in the treatment of neurological disease, very often. And our doctors, Russian doctors, like cereblizine, like peptide therapies. It's absolutely true. Currently, this is no evidence base for the effectiveness of this drug for the treatment of patients with autistic disorder. Therefore, we don't plan to use cerebralizine in combination with cord blood stem cells. We don't plan, no.
Okay.
Thank you. Just the last question, and then Enrique will finish. What you thought about the transplant for autism disorder? I mean by transplant, it's treatment like basically that you returning person immune system and shown in animal models, it's given a good result. So what you thought about transplant with umbilical cord like you're using for the patients with leukemia, but for autism? What do you think about?
Stanislav will answer.
Okay. I'm absolutely against it. Absolutely against. No. Let's start about autism. For now, we don't know what causes the autism. We have many thoughts, we have many theories, but we don't know it. We don't know if the immune system starts the autism, or maybe differences, or maybe deviation in immune system is not the reason. It's a result of the autism. It's possible, and we don't know what we don't know the immune system, this or not, and the transplantation with which is make it after the destruction of the bone marrow and so-called immune reset. It's very dangerous procedure. It can kill patients. It provides dangerous complications such transplant rejection. It can be graft versus host disease. It's so dangerous procedure. We know that the risk of this procedure is many higher than likely benefits. So we don't think this procedure can be used in the patients with ASD.
It's used generally with a patient who risk to die if they don't have such procedure.
Of course, of course. It's only
so the level of the risk is not the same for the person.
Yes. There is another option, so-called soft transplantation. It's high dose chemotherapy, but without destroying the bone marrow. It's killed only immune cells.
Yeah.
But this procedure is still very dangerous. And in case we don't know the responsibility of the immune system to autism, we kill just immune system, and then I don't know if we cure the autism. I think not, because there is not enough data to try these risky procedures.
But this procedure, the new procedure you told, used for what kind of illness?
Soft chemotherapy. It's used in a case of multiple sclerosis.
Multiple sclerosis.
Yes, where it's very dangerous disease, and it's but modern immunobiologic medicine drugs can stop progress of multiple sclerosis. This technology was used before these modern drugs, so maybe in older times it was a reason to try this technology. Yes. But right now there is many options to try. So
I guess just to wrap up, we have a few more minutes, and I would like to just give folks in the live chat an opportunity to ask questions, and I just received one, if you don't mind.
Okay.
So we know that your treatment has, as I said at the beginning, it has given great benefits to some children. Really, I mean, I know some of those testimonies myself, both in cerebral palsy and also in autism. And I guess I wanted to ask you, and also using the question from Navamita Buya, what kinds of things have you seen that people that have benefited from the treatments do after they receive stem cell therapy? Have you observed any of that? Like what kinds of recommendations, if any? I mean, have you observed from parents that have benefited? Are there any cognitive therapies, any other things they do after the fact? I mean, that you could mention?
I think it's the most benefit from this stem cell therapy, especially cord blood stem cell therapy. We see from the behavior of patient, behavior and the cognitive ability. And we see with the patient cerebral palsy and autism that the children start more communicative. It's high communicative skill received, and all healthy and all behavior is start more better. And needs approximately 1 or 2 months, and we see start benefit from the stem cells therapy. If I answer questions like this.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. And I mean, like your research, I think it's not an understatement. It's really giving a lot of hope to families, and we are really appreciative of your time and all the work that you're doing, Dr.
Can I ask the last question only, Enrique?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I just want to know, Olga, now in bank, in Samara Bank, how many cord blood units you have? Because before it was about 10,000. Now, because you're receiving every day new units, maybe you already have bigger volume in your cord bank, or how much?
Thank you for the questions. So now we have approximately 11,000, 10,800 samples of cord blood.
Okay.
But we used more than 400 cord blood samples we used.
Yeah. During this year, you already used for
already.
Okay.
Thank you for this discussion. Thank you for Svetlana. Thank you for all participants.
Yeah, absolutely, and really, thank you for the opportunity to discuss these treatments. I hope you give us another interview as we continue to gather more data on the clinical trials that you're conducting, and continue to gather more encouraging results like the ones you're studying right now. So thank you so much for the time, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
See you next time.
Bye.